The first statement, human existence is conditioned. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, what level are we? Well, if we're talking about the human realm, we're talking about conventional reality.
Mm-hmm.
So, life is conditioned, isn't it? There are, for the existence of any one thing, there have to be many other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, for instance, a tree is conditioned. Its existence is conditioned by the need for nutriment, the need for sunlight, the need for water.
Mm.
So its appearance is conditioned by weather and what other objects surround it.
Mm.
So the form it takes is heavily conditioned by its environment, and its very existence is conditioned. So that's what conditionality means.
Mm.
So in terms of human life, the existence that we're born into is conditioned by our past actions, because it was our actions in the past, our chemically active actions, that were a major contributory factor to the kind of family we were born into, the kind of privilege that we were born into, the kind of society, the kind of culture, the kind of opportunities, kind of education. So that was our birth in this scheme of things was conditioned by those past actions, and we're heavily conditioned by our parents and the kind of rules, either explicit rules or implicit rules, through observing their behaviour and mimicking their behaviour. So psychologically we're conditioned by that. We're conditioned by the food we eat, by the kind of environment that we live in. So we're being bashed around all the time and being moulded by all these other factors, including so psychologically we're deeply conditioned. So when it comes down to things like will, the question is, well, do we have free will? And we've talked about that before, and we recognise that, well, it depends on what is prompting the volition, and what prompts a volition to, I don't know, use an umbrella. Well, the fact that it's raining. So is it a free choice? So all those sort of questions come into play. But that's what we mean by conditionality in terms of conventional human existence. Is that kind of what you're after?
That's what I was after. But also I read about conditioning factors. So how do they come into it?
Well, there's a one way of looking at it is to say that there's a passive side to our existence, and then there's an active side. So the passive side is what we experience in terms of our senses. So we see things, we hear things, we smell, we touch, we taste things, and then the kind of mental experience that arises in terms of feelings and memories and so forth. And then there is an active process of response to that stimuli. So life experiences contain all this mind-body stuff, experiences, and then we respond to those experiences. So there's a conditioned side, which is the passive side, and then there's the active side, which is the conditioning side. So we are affecting our future by the way that we behave now. That's the other side of the karmic equation. So it is the way that we behave now, which is like the rudder that steers us into the kind of future experiences that we have. So for Buddhist practitioners, it makes sense to keep the 5 Buddhist precepts and to develop qualities such as loving kindness. So when you sit down and practice loving kindness meditation, you're practicing, you're getting better at it. You're creating the neural pathways in the brain, as it were. You're creating a habit, a tendency towards loving kindness. So you are in that sense, you are conditioning the mind. Yeah. So that's the active phase.
And I actually had a question related to that. One of my questions was, does the process of meditation lighten our karmic load? Or could it be said that like meditation purifies the heart in a sense? Aside from all the things about enlightenment, just the process of meditating.
Well, when we say lightening the karmic load, that all unenlightened beings are karmically active. Enlightened people are free from performing actions which must produce a result, but they still experience the results from actions they performed in the past. Okay, so everyone who's not yet enlightened but who is meditating, when we say they're lightening their karmic load, they're not reducing this baseline law that their actions have results, but what they're doing is lightening the load of unwholesome karmic action, the stuff that makes life painful and difficult and awkward. They are reducing that. So in practical terms, when you meditate, the first thing that you attend to is purifying the mind of hindrances temporarily. So that is a purification of unwholesome karmic load, because the hindrances, things like sensual desire, ill will, worry, and that kind of thing, those are karmically active processes. So through the mere act of resting the mind in the moment and ceasing the habitual blind processing of the mind and all this becoming that goes on, by choosing to rest the mind and watch the breathing process and then see these habitual behaviours emerging and learning to recognise them, completely acknowledge them, and then let them go. That is, if you want to put it in terms of purifying the heart, or if you want to put it in terms of reducing levels of unwholesome karmic activity in the mind, then that's the case. And then there's a further aspect to it for people practicing insight meditation, which is the whole purpose of the exercise is to rid the mind, to eliminate permanently the tendency towards those inefficient mental behaviours, and to ultimately transcend the wheel of samsara completely. So, yeah, does that cover it?
Does cover it. I just wondered,
what was going on? What was your mental process? What prompted the question?
After meditating, I felt about 12 pounds lighter.
And
it wasn't because I'd been on a diet.
Yes, because you can't you can't separate completely mental processes and physical processes. We are a psycho-physical phenomenon. We are mind and matter, and if you look in the books, in the Abhidhamma, there is a very clear account of how mind conditions matter as well as matter conditioning mind. So most people in the West, in the scientific materialist view of the world, understands that the brain, the activities of the brain affect the mind, right?
Yeah.
When you meditate, you also realise that the mind affects our physical experience. So they condition one another. They are both conditioned and conditioning. Okay. So mind and mind can be a condition for the arising of matter. Matter can be a condition for the arising of mind. So if you're in a meditation and you get free of hindrances and you get concentrated, and you're seeing things arise and pass away, and you're not clinging to any of it, and it's delightful, and there's rapture, and there's peace, and there's happiness. There is also lightness of mind. And that has a qualitative effect on how we perceive our bodies. So mind is conditioning our physical experience. So we experience that physical experience as a sense of lightness and a sense of freedom. Yeah. So, yeah, I get where you're coming from. So, yeah, definitely. So what you do mentally conditions. So if someone is feeling really depressed, that has, you literally find it a struggle to get out of bed because everything feels so heavy. I remember walking through Bristol shortly before I entered into the training here, and I was so depressed that I was walking to another dead-end agency job, 0-hour contract kind of nonsense. And my legs would simply not walk me there. I had to go and sit in a park in the centre of town near Cabot's Tower. And I sat there instead of going to this job. And even as I was walking home from not having reached that job, somebody passed me in the street. And it was a gorgeous spring morning. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was like the first really sunny day after the winter, and this woman walked past me and said, "How could anyone be so sad on such a beautiful day?" Well, I thought, oh dear, I've got to do something about this, I'm in trouble here. But yeah, it was literally, going back to the thing, there was a heaviness, a physical heaviness that was a complement to the mental heaviness.